Today, I'm beyond excited to welcome Andy, the mastermind behind the Movement Studio in Dublin. Andy's not only built a thriving space dedicated to creating, but has also been a pivotal figure in my personal fitness journey. He introduced me to the art of handstands and inspired a deeper connection to my body, which ultimately influenced me on my own coaching and business. Andy's passion for movement and helping people redefine their physical capabilities is unmatched, and I can't wait for you to hear his story and wisdom. Thanks for having me, Andy. I know that obviously we've kind of had a good relationship over the last few years, and I'm privileged that you were the first person on this episode. If you'd like to kind of introduce yourself and just give us a short, bio, or at least just a little description as to what you do and I guess where we first got connected.
Cheers, man. Likewise, absolute privilege to be the first guest for your show as well. So thank you so much. So I am the founder and co-owner of the Movement Studio. We're in Terranure since 2013. Very much a human-based business. So my viewpoint on what fitness is, or what more than fitness is for people, it was basically set up as, I like to call it my first album now, but hopefully we'll get more context into that later. But just how I see the world, how I see people, how people should be treated and looked after. It's more than fitness and always has been. So yeah, we're going on year 12 in Terranure now. Helping people move, helping people connect with one another, keeping the focus on the individual, but helping people take the focus off themselves and focus on culture and community and other people. So connecting people, moving, spending time together, doing nice things. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Just so people are aware, our first interaction was actually on a Bozu training seminar, which is so far from where we are today in terms of what we do. So it's something that we always kind of joke about every time we connect, and it's quite interesting how that was something that brought us together. And then obviously, we can kind of get into how, I guess, what I like to say is we became friends. Obviously at that stage we kind of knew people who knew people, and that's how it was like that 3 degrees of separation. But obviously then later on, and I'm happy to talk about it, how we actually initially got connected. And I guess because this will kind of lead into that, is, in my opinion, you have the best facility in Ireland in terms of the level of coaching that somebody can get even in a group setting. Obviously we've got some amazing personal trainers in Ireland, but what I feel is especially in a group training scenario, is what I experienced in Ireland before I left was this kind of race to the bottom of the barrel, where it was just more about price and actually less about coaching. And then in 2015, I came across your studio, and I noticed that it was more geared towards coaching and creating a space where people had a better understanding of their own body. If you kind of want to touch on, I guess, the ethos of Movement Studio, and just more around like what initiated that kind of creation of it, like what inspired you to really create, feel is probably the highest quality level of coaching that you can get in Ireland, bar none.
That's really high praise. Thank you very much. I won't do the Irish thing and be like, oh no, like I appreciate it, but it's off the back of being very, very humble, all along, and always looking up to other coaches as well and my peers and all that. So if you feel that way about the studio, it means a lot to me. But I don't think I ever settle, or the studio, we don't ever settle for what we do. We're constantly trying to be better and do better. So appreciate and love the praise. I want to hear that from the members all the time, because that's the service they're paying for. To hear from a peer, it means a lot, and it's really, really nice. So thank you very much. The studio. So for me, I have actually, on our last Christmas party, I have this thing where I cry a lot. So I was chatting with one of the members after one of the Saturday classes, and she had told me, she's like, if you experience a level of emotion that's not really called for in the scenario, there's suppressed emotions there. Like this, she's actually been an amazing business coach to me as well, and a good friend. And I was like, I don't think that's it. So I spent the whole day, this is the day of the Christmas party, and the party was late that evening. I spent the whole day thinking, what is it? Why, like, I don't suppress my emotions. I don't believe, like, 'cause I've been through counseling, I've done this, I'm very honest. I'm just a very open person. I don't hide things, I don't evade things. Like, so I was like, I don't think it's suppressed emotion. What is it? And as I was processing through it today, it's this overwhelming sense of gratitude where when I kind of resolved my thoughts around it, I was like, I don't think people understand just how grateful I am that they're in the studio helping me live my dream and so that I can help them with their life. So it's very hard for me to express in words what that means because I just don't think people would understand. So what comes out is just this big bodily reaction where it's like, no, you don't get it. Like, you don't get it. I love people. So that's where it all comes from. I love people. I love connecting with people. I love helping people. I love hearing people's stories. I love knowing that everybody is my superior in so many ways because of the experience they have, the jobs they do, the talents, like all of that stuff. So I think the studio was set up because I wanted to save myself, first of all, coming from a very unhappy place. Um, that was the first thing. One of the second things, which I love to tell people as well, was that I felt like if I set up a community, I'd be safe and that I'd be protected. So this lovely reciprocal thing can come across quite selfish when I'm thinking I'm going to set up a community, and eventually if shit hits the fan, I'll probably know enough people that I'll be okay. And it actually has been that way all along because I've been helping people, they've been helping me, and that's just a genuine reciprocal way of doing things. That's community, that's culture, that's care, that's love, it's friendship, it's relationships. So yeah, kind of setting it up off the back of me being so unhappy, and realizing I didn't have to live the life that was making me unhappy. So I could make all the changes I want, make all the choices I want, be the change I wanted to see, help other people along the way do the same thing. And that's basically the starting point of the studio was that, like, it's just like I know I can live happier. I can turn up to work in shorts, even if it's -2 outside. I could turn up barefoot. I can choose my working hours. I just so happen to choose very early. I can wear what I want. I can, you can do whatever. I can program what I want. I can teach what I want. I can learn how to do the handstands, and Jesus Christ, look what happened after that. So yeah, I think it was just my way of seeing the world and trying to be the change you want to see, and hopefully people come along, scratching my own itch.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. Like I feel that's exactly what resonated with me when I walked in the door for the first time. My first interaction was obviously when your studio was probably 20% the size that it is now, and when I walked in the door, initially, so the whole reason why I walked in the door was because at the time I was dating a girl who, we like to challenge ourselves every weekend, and we tried to pick something that scared us a little bit. And for me, I'd always wanted to do handstands, and we just came across randomly. There was a place in Terenure, at the time it was called AM Fitness, and it was doing a handstand class, and we thought, wow, this is definitely gonna scare me. And I was kind of, as a kid, I did cartwheels and I did front flips. I was just, as I say, no skill, just fearless. And so I guess for me, when I walked in, number one is I just loved the fact that the first thing we did was hug. Like that was my first interaction with you was that openness, and I think that was awesome. And it's definitely something that I treasure because it's kind of the way I am with people as well. I'll generally ask someone, "Are you a handshaker or a hugger?" Like, because I'm a hugger, and so it's always nice to be that individual. And um, as your studio grew, it's been absolutely amazing to see the growth within the members, because obviously, like, for anyone who doesn't know, like, when I go back to Ireland, there's been a lot of times where I've done seminars at your studio, and a lot of the times, especially your members who come to it, it's the same faces even 4 years on. So it's a real testament to kind of what you've created and the culture you've created. And obviously, when I was living in Sydney, I had people who were training with me, and they went back to Ireland, and the first thing I said to them was, "You need to go to this facility." And I can even see that there's people still training there from that as well. So it's like it is an Irish thing that we don't like to big ourselves up, but sometimes it's good to give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back and recognize that, the early mornings, the hard work, the stuff that people don't see is now coming into fruition. And yeah, as for people who are listening that aren't of the kind of UK and Irish culture, like, we're nations of people who don't like to, as we call it, show off, but it's not really showing off. It's just looking back at what you've created and the best advice that I ever got, and I actually got it last year, was just around the, like, we're so interested in looking at the next 90 days. Like, we're so interested on, if I can just get this, then I'll be happy. Or if I can just get to this amount of members, or just get to this, I can open this amount of facilities, like, I'll just be happy. When actually, if we look at the last 90 days, and if we always judge ourselves on the last 90 days, it's quite amazing how you can find gratitude in where you're at now, right? Because, you know, I have a good experience of you, and you're kind of similar to me in the sense of, like, we are competitive people against ourselves. We don't potentially compare ourselves to others, but we always want to show up each day, and we always want to make sure that any kind of interaction somebody has with us is they're getting the best version of us. And so every time I'm kind of hard on myself, and every time I'm a little bit, you know, giving myself a bit of a kick up the ass, it's always because I'm looking at the last 90 days and say, hang on a second. Look at like 3 months ago and what you were just kind of saying, if I can just achieve this. And so that's a beautiful thing. And I think for anybody who does get to go to Dublin, they definitely need to go and experience what they can actually experience in a group class or a group environment at your space, right? Because, like, seeing members come in, hug each other, seeing members high five each other, seeing members, it doesn't matter if you were the person who can demonstrate the best skill or you're the person who's only just walked in the door. You're getting the same level of attention. You're getting the same amount of love. You're getting, you know, it's the biggest mistake that I see in a lot of facilities is, number one is forgetting your long-term members, because you think that, oh yeah, they just know everything, and then putting too much attention on the newbies. While as I feel that you've hit the sweet spot, like the fact that you have all your kind of, you have everything kind of in phases, you have everything with a good strategy behind it, everybody understanding the why. I think it's a very hard thing to do, because obviously I've worked in group training and I know how challenging and difficult that can be. But I put it down to your experience, and I just put it down to, again, asking questions from the people. Like, I know you're somebody who looks at your members as friends and not just another number, right? You said it yourself, like, you get emotional when somebody is willing to make a transaction to literally step foot into your premises, right? Like, and I'm quite similar in the stuff that I do, right? And, you know, that's just stuff that a lot of people don't see, right? Like, I'm quite an emotional person as well. And a lot of the times when I'm doing some of the testimonial videos with some of my clients, like, I get quite emotional, because I'm like, I saw that person when they first got on the call with me. I saw, like, their physical posture. I saw their facial, like, expressions. And now I see them as literally somebody totally different. And the fact that they're saying that it was myself, my coaches, and our platform that allowed them to get to that position. You know, just to give you an example, like, we had a client who wasn't socializing, was working from home, refusing to go to work because she lived in London. She couldn't get up and down stairs. So getting onto the likes of a train or going down to the London Underground just was not a possibility for her. And so when she started with me, she, you know, there's obviously that hesitancy, because she's like, how can you be any different to people that we've spoke to in the past? Like, how, you know, I go and see these specialists, I go and see these people. How are you any different? And all I said to her was, I'm just going to look at you as an individual. I'm going to look at you as a human being, and I'm going to see what can you do and what can you not do. And what you can't do as a human being, if you should be able to do it and there's no physical restriction, then we're going to get to work and we're going to really prioritize that. If you are not comfortable going to a gym, I don't expect you to go to a gym. Because in her attitude, she was like, I walk into a gym, I look at all these skinny and, you know, people who are fit. It gives me a negative association. And so what I said to her was, well, let's get you moving. You can worry about the gym when you feel comfortable to do that. But for the moment, let's just get you moving. When we did a testimonial, like, she was now going to work 2 days a week. She was socializing on the weekends with her friends, and she had now joined a gym. Not only had she joined a gym, she had joined a gym that she had to walk 5K to go to. So for me, I was like, this is like literally unbelievable, you know? And it's hard in the fitness industry, because there is a lot of people who obviously can say mass and can, you know, put on a good front and potentially not have the best of intentions behind that. While as when you have, you know, people like myself and yourself who are, I think, going above and beyond. I mean, I get up at 4:30 most mornings, which a lot of people don't know. And so it's like, in a nice way possible. I don't have to do that. Like I have a great team of people who help me with a lot of things I do. Likewise, you have trainers as well. You could potentially get them to do that if you really wanted to. But it's the passion and knowing that you can dictate the things that you want to do in your life. You're also like me. You have 2 young kids, so it's like I know that if I get up at 4:30 and I work till 7:30, then I can switch off and I can do a few things with my kids so that they see that I'm around, and then I can decide whether I've got to do something else in the afternoon or whatever the case may be. So it's a beautiful thing, and I guess what I'm reverting back to here is actually giving yourself a pat on the back to say, well, I'm doing the things that most people are giving up too soon from, or I'm doing the things that most people are not willing to do. I'm offering a price point that actually doesn't even reflect the level of detail and the level of coaching, the level of support, the level of love that I give to my clients. And I think that's a real testament. Especially, as I said, my experience when I left Ireland was around this race to the bottom of the barrel. And you stayed true to offering what I deem as being coaching. And I think now it's obviously stayed true to you. And I know, like, obviously your growth has been good. If you want to talk about that, I think that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, so in line with what you're saying, the thing for me is there are so many people who work hard. I think it's very easy to work hard, very easy to work long days, plenty of gym owners I look up to, business owners I look up to. So I don't think it's that. I think it's defining success has always been the main thing for me. And so when I started and when I decided I don't want to be unhappy anymore, I want to be happy, the moment I did that, and I think this is important for prospective clients or people who are watching, the moment you decide to do the thing, you're successful. And it's only when you stop, you're unsuccessful. Because once you're doing the thing, you're on the pathway to doing what you want. And I don't think I've ever compromised on that. I think I have a very strong filter around honesty, truth, and honoring the reason I started with everything. So when we had 3 squat racks and when we had 10 members and when I was living in my man's and when I was not even knowing what sort of money I was bringing in, but it was probably about €500 a month, to when we extended the place and had more, then extended again, and now we've lots of business structures in place. We've staff, full-time staff, co-owner Keith, and 170 something members at the moment. It doesn't matter. Whenever the conversations come up around, are we doing this, are we doing that, the filter will always be the same. And I love this about my co-owner Keith as well, of aligning with his family life being important to make sure he has time for his 2 daughters. And that as business grows for us, when I'm talking to him, I'm like, okay, great. The next step looks great, but the step after that's a bit daunting because I can't not be doing what I prioritize here. I want to bring my girls to school 2 or 3 mornings a week. I want to collect them 2 or 3 times a week, X, Y, Z. So none of us are afraid of hard work. But I don't know if people will always have, again, the genuine care about looking after the person first before the money. Because if you look after the people, the money will come anyway. I still don't believe that in a lot of people. I still think people will be business first and they'll know that people will get them there. I actually heard this at one of the business seminars recently. They were like, essentially systems and people and profits come after that. So even if you are business orientated and more along the lines of the financial side of things or a capitalist, is like, but it's still going to happen off the back of that. But for me, the best quote I heard last week, Seth Godin was saying it, I don't know if he came up with it, was the purpose of a beehive is not to make honey. Honey is just an amazing byproduct of a healthy, happy beehive. And that says everything, because that's basically the same analogy of like, you look after people, you do what's right, you stay true, you stay honest. That's at the core what you do. The benefits will come. Like, that just happens because you're doing that. But if all you're thinking is just money, 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 system, da, which is super important because you want to have a service to back up how you help people. And if you don't have good systems in place, you're not going to optimize how you look after people or onboard people or tell your story and do that. But I just think when I hear you talking about we work hard, we work this, I don't think hard work is I don't think it's the main thing. I think there's so many people who work hard. I was only talking to a young lad a while ago, actually. His dad's never around. His dad works 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. He owns his own business. And he's in boarding school, but it's only like 20 minutes from where he lives. And he's no need to be in a boarding school. And then his mom's like, oh yeah, his dad's so busy, the business. I'm looking at this kid and I can see his heart break and he's talking to me like, it's a young teenager I've never spoken to before. And I was looking at him. He's like, "Yeah, Dad's not like essentially like not using the words, but he's like, my dad's not around. My dad doesn't want to be here. Like this is what I can see when I'm talking to him." I'm like, how? I don't know what you're like for bad language on your podcasts. But how? But this how strong I felt. Like how the fuck can you own your own business and not choose to be around? Like yeah, and
Yeah, I have a strong fucking opinion of that. And for me, the only exception is if you had somebody who has to be abroad, as an example, as part of their business and potentially can't be there. But there'd want to be a strong reason for that. And this is what really hit home with me. A few years back, I was coaching somebody who has more money than you could ever imagine. This person inherited it from his father. His father passed away, and this person can, buy a sports car for $500,000 and not even bat an eyelid. This person is not happy at the best of times. And for me, what I could see was the fact that daddy wasn't around anymore. There had to be a purchase of something to create dopamine. And then when that dopamine subsided, there had to be like this next level of dopamine. So then 6 months, they'd trade that in and potentially buy another car or do something else. So what that spurred me to do was I have a very, very simple approach to life. And this is it. I got told about 2 years ago by somebody who said, you have 12 summers. And after 12 summers, then your kids are now teenagers and their approach to wanting to hang out with you is going to be a lot less because now they're older and they want to spend time with their friends. Not only that, if we look at the data of women who didn't have a father figure as a kid, and we look at their male choices as they age, and we look at potentially, them as a strong individual. My approach to life is my 2 daughters are going to get every ounce of my attention for at least the first 12 years. Because not only do I want them to make better male choices, I want them to understand, I roughhouse with my daughters. Like we wrestle, like they ask me to wrestle. They're very much authoritative figures. Like I see it around other kids. If they want something, they know how to ask for it. I have a 2-year-old who knows how to ask for something because she understands that if she doesn't ask, she doesn't get. And I don't mean that in it like you need to talk to your father if you want something. I mean it in the more if she's around a circle of people who are older than her, she has to stand up for herself to get her way. That's the way kids work. There is a hierarchy, whether we like it or not, because in kids' world, if I'm bigger than you, well, I have a strong position against you, which says that if I want it, you're not taking it off me. And so for me, like that's my biggest motivation right now is to work in a business that allows me the time to spend time with my daughters. I think that's very evident. Like obviously I do post a lot about my kids and I do post a lot about my personal life because I want to show people that like having the latest and greatest cars and having the best houses and all that, yeah, it's fantastic. And in terms of a ratio, if you're earning a shitload of money, then of course, like it makes sense to have those things. In my opinion, like I just want to spend more. I want to create more memories with my kids. I want my kids to be adults and then say to people, my daddy was always around. That's the number one sentence that I want to hear from my kids. I bring my kids swimming. I drop my kids to daycare, like yourself, right? I bring my kids to jiu-jitsu. I'm always trying to be around as much as I can because I would never like the fact that I work from home, Amy, my fiance, works from home. My kids don't really understand when you're not there. Like there's sometimes where we have to travel a little bit, maybe for 2 or 3 days. My kids don't understand that at all. They're just like, what's just happened? And that's a beautiful thing in itself because it's, I still want them to understand that these things have to happen every so often. But I love that I have an amazing relationship with my kids, right? And I'm going to keep that for as long as I can. And nothing's going to get in the way of that. And so like what you said around, no matter how busy my businesses go, I've got 2 businesses now. And, one of them, handstand, which is the fitness side of things, which is, it's quite a successful business. And we have a team of about 12 to 14 people, I think it is. We've got other coaches, we've got dietitians, we've got nutritionists, we've got a lot of people on board who are helping with all aspects of that business. We are now in a growth stage of our second business. And, so that's taking up a lot of my time, but a lot of my time is still within that time zone that's outside of my kids' kind of area. And I'm going to keep that for as long as I can because I see the benefit of it. I see the relationship I have with two of my kids. My older kid, obviously first child, first female, you always have this amazing relationship with your first female kid, right? So for me, I was like, well, I want to try and create that with my second child. And so what I did then was on a Monday, I used to drop my older kid to kindy, and then I used to spend the whole day with my younger kid. Because the idea was, I was like, I want her to understand that this is our time. And so obviously when you have an older child who speaks before the second child, they will always try and answer for the second child and all these things. So for me, I was always like, if we can just have our own little space, and, I taught her how to swim and we spend a lot of time together. Like, the more that I can continue to do that, I see a huge benefit. So in your scenario, like, I think it's a testament to you, because it can be very easy for us to just say, oh, well, look, if I could just get this thing done, or if I could just do this, or I've got to go meet such and such. It's like, if we can just stay true that actually, no, that time's booked out. Like, I'm not available that time. And that's a beautiful thing in itself, right? Knowing that, maybe you can agree with this, but when we first started in the fitness industry, obviously you're trying to get your name out there. You're trying to get business. And so it's very easy at times to just go, well, I'll just work later and I'll work earlier. And one of the best things that I learned last year was a podcast, ironically, from a guy called Dan Sullivan as opposed to O'Sullivan. And it was called 10X is easier than 2X. And the idea behind it was, if I say to you, like, would you like to 2X your business? It's very easy for you to think of like, well, if I just work harder, I could potentially double my income. Like if I work maybe a few more hours, if I potentially do something different and work those extra hours, I can bring in that kind of double income. But if I said to you, like, would you like to 10X your business? In a way, you're going to understand that potentially you have to add systems. You're going to have to add maybe staff. Like, for that to be a reality, you can see that it's not possible for you to do that by yourself. And that was a massive, massive kind of thing for me. I've got 2 Post-its here on my desk. And one of them says, nobody can do it as good as I can. And I have a big X through it. And then the other one says, it's faster if I do it myself. And again, I have a big X through it. And they were 2 big things that really kind of hit home with me last year, because, my background is fitness as well as computer science. So like, I have this knowledge of how to build these things, but sometimes that's your downfall, because as you know, like when you first hired another coach to come on board, there's a part of you that's kind of like, are they going to do that as good as me? Are they going to do it as well as I would like them to do? And then actually when you realize it, you realize, fuck, he's better than me at doing that. It's like, why did I worry so much about this? So now if I hire a web developer, I'm like, shit, you did that like twice as quick as me and twice as good as me. And it's like, oh, okay. I need to realize that actually, do you know what? It's okay that people are better than you. And we have to just put our hand up and go, okay, sweet.
It's nice.
What I'd like to kind of move on to now is more around, let's get back into kind of the fitness side of things, because, obviously that's kind of how we first initially met. And we first initially met from a handstand class. You opened my world to not only just handstands, but you opened my world to just the discrepancies in my body, right? And that's kind of what switched the light bulb for me. I came into your studio very much someone who was, playing a sport, who was very much in this kind of strength and conditioning mindset, who was, quite lean at the time and couldn't put his arm over his head. Like, so it was quite interesting because it was very humbling. And I guess there's 2 ways that somebody can go about that, right? One is they can be bravado and say, well, that's not fucking for me because that's stupid. Who would want to do a handstand? Or it could be like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that I couldn't put my arm up over my head without arching. So I guess what I'd like to kind of just go into is just kind of like, what advice do you have for people, who feel kind of stuck or frustrated in their fitness or kind of movement practice?
The first thing is that you chose to come. So you wanted something. You may have not known what it was. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe subconsciously or something was like, handstand. I'm going to try that. Maybe you tried one at home before you came to class and realized, oh shit, I can't do this. Who knows? But the person taking that first step is the main thing. And we say this all the time. If a husband gets on, my wife is looking to train, or I think my wife should train, or vice versa, I'm like, your wife will have to be the one that gets in touch. First of all, everything we do is very individual anyway. So I'll need to get to know her and what she wants, and but if she doesn't take that step, or he doesn't take that step, I was like, we can't. It's for that reason, like, we're very hesitant to do gift vouchers around Christmas time and stuff. It just ends up being like, hey, I want to do X, Y, Z, and then I have to talk to this person, be like, have they expressed the want to do that? Because if you get them that, and then that could go very, very south, very, very good. So I think the first step being made by the person is very important. That can be a nudge from a friend. That's how I got into this, to being a trainer as well. The friends in the gym I was in, they were like, you're very good at teaching kickboxing, you love training, would you not become a personal trainer? I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know that. But the moment somebody said it, I was like, my God, they're right. So you still have to take the action yourself, I think, is the main thing. Other than that, again, once you take the step, you're on the path. And once you don't stop, you're successful. You just keep chipping away and doing what you want. The next thing is then just finding somebody who can offer the help that you're looking for. So whatever that may be. Everything's a journey. Take ownership, take responsibility, but realize that you're not by yourself. It's that simple.
Yeah, I think people have this perception that they need to like create a level of fitness to then go to a fitness class. And what I relate that to is like, you don't learn how to drive, or you don't go and drive a car before you then go and do driving lessons, right? Like the attitude is, well, I'm going to go and do these lessons because this person is going to teach me, hopefully the best way to drive a car, or the most efficient way to drive a car. And I relate that to people. I always say is, especially like in a studio like yourself, or, what we do online, it's like we map it out for you as an individual. Like we literally say, yeah, okay, even in your scenario, because I've seen it, is like, even though you're in a group of people, you will notice that people are lifting maybe different weights, doing a different tempo, doing a different variation of that exercise, because our role here is to educate you on why you need what you need and when you need it. And it's like, based on the assessment that we've done, like this is your priority. And so, in your scenario where you have classes, I would imagine that if you're doing a hips class or something, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe hinge is the focus, but somebody is doing a different variation to that person over there because, hey, their hips are actually rotating, their hips are potentially not rotating. So this would be actually where you best invest your time, right? And I think that's for a lot of people, there's a lot of gyms that don't offer that, because it's just like, for most people, their perception of what exercise is like, okay, I've got 45 minutes. I need to sweat. I need to get my heart rate up. Like, let me get in there. Let me get it done.
I think I was going to say a gym can be, but I'm going to say a gym is, because I've experienced this myself, even when I was at my fittest and strongest. Joining a gym is daunting. Like, it is. It absolutely is. I love to know and to tell people we have the most nurturing and nourishing space possible, and that if we didn't work for a lot of people, I don't think any other gym would, if you're talking about a certain age bracket, a certain experience. But joining a gym is daunting. So I think it's our responsibility to connect with people, to hear them. So that's why the first consultation is really important to us. It's like, you're getting the tone of voice, you're getting the backstory, you're getting all this, but deep down it's like, it's daunting. Whatever step this person's going to make, like, we need to assure them that it's going to be the right one, or at least that trial period will be a safe onboarding process where we'll prioritize getting to know them and build them up bit by bit. And even if they're here, we'll start from here and then, let them fly later. But yeah, the idea of like, I want to get fit, you have to kind of look into the psychology of I want to get fit before I try this. What they're saying is, this is daunting, I'm scared. So that's extremely valid. Like I said, when I joined a different gym, when I was like super fit, super strong, I was going around fumbling weights and dropping weights and taking too many plates off one side of the bar first and all that. New environment, new people, you don't know what's going on. So I just think, look, the communication behind that is really important. And then being able to back it up when, again, if you see our social media, you want to walk in, you want to feel like the person I see in these videos is exactly the person that's standing in front of me now. This place actually feels and looks exactly how I thought it would. That's, for me, that's the job of branding and social media, and being honest and truthful and telling your story properly. But then there's some people who just, they'll always think I need to get fit for it, and they'll never start. So back to that, taking that first step is like you can only help the people that reach out. What was it I heard the other day? A church an empty church can't save any souls. You need people to be able to help us all. Yeah, but it is daunting. I'm very mindful of that when I'm talking to people.
Yeah, what I say to people is ready, fire, aim. So the idea is like if you don't like take a shot, you don't know where you're actually trying to go, right? So it was said to me more around execution of things. People, leading into kind of social media as an example. If someone's scared to post videos on social media, it's like, well, get it out there and then see what people want, and don't be worried by actually the closest people to you, because they're not the people who are actually going to invest in you. So it's quite an interesting one in relation to like gyms and stuff. This is where, in my experience, especially coming to Australia and working with some really good gyms here, and obviously then being exposed to other good gyms, that kind of idea of the on-ramping and this kind of initial session, I think is just, it's gold for somebody, because it's making them feel like, okay, I can come in here and I'm like, what I always say to people is, because we do online assessments, and what I say to people is like, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to just find your baseline. So it's like, don't think that I'm because what happens is this, you'll get people say, oh, 10 years ago, this used to be so easy, or, I used to be able to do this. And like, oh my God, 10 years ago, I'd be laughing at what I'm doing now. And I'm like, cool. I said, look, do you know what the great thing is? We have muscle memory. And so I said, once we get you back into a routine, you can start to ignite all those things very quickly. But what I want to appreciate, or want you to appreciate, is the amazing things you've done between then and now, whether it's, someone who's had 3 kids and hasn't had the time to invest in themselves. And it's like, now you have that time and you've created this, this amazing family. And now we're going to help you to basically get back to wherever it is that you want to get to. And, that's the beautiful thing of real coaching, as I call it, right? It's saying, look, this is where you're at right now. It is okay. Like this is the analogy I always give. Whenever I'm training a kid, training a child is like training a clean chalkboard. And so every input that I give them, I'm writing on a fresh canvas. When I'm training an adult, I have to appreciate that maybe there's inputs on that chalkboard that have been rubbed out and I can still kind of see them. So I have to help them to overcome them. I call them their excuses. And I say, look, I validate excuses. Excuses isn't a negative. Excuses is the reason why potentially you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do. Or if you are someone who I'm on a call with, you don't want to start doing something because you're nervous or whatever it is. It's an excuse. And that's okay, because if I can find, a solution to it, wouldn't that be a good thing? And whether it's if someone says, oh, I can't do a 60-minute session. Cool. Don't do a fucking 60-minute session. Let's do 45. Can you do 30? Can you do 15? Because people's perception is like, oh, like I see these classes on timetables and there's an hour. I can't do an hour. Okay, cool. Don't do a fucking hour. Like it's the key to any kind of journey is understanding your starting point, right? Like when, up until 2019. So from 2015 to 2019, I was hardcore handstanding. Like I'm talking ridiculous amount. At one point I was doing 5 hours a day. But I still remember when I walked into your studio, I got 1 second, I think it was, and that was after being spotted into the most exact position and then, let go of my hands for a split, or let go of my legs for a split second and then caught them again. While as further down the track, then I was holding 60 seconds freestanding. So it's like, that didn't happen overnight. It happened over 5 years. And only for I was humble enough to just go, right, well, I'm shit at this and I'm just going to keep coming back and be shit at it. And then I'm going to listen to what's been asked of me to do. And then I'm going to go and do that at home and I'm going to do it here. For anybody who doesn't know, like I used to cycle, I think it was about 17 kilometers to go to your class. And then I'd cycle to work and then I'd cycle home. Like I was so addicted because the background story of me was I had so many injuries, which has kind of led me into teaching mobility training because I've wrecked my own body and I can still, I like to think I can still do things that are, pretty good. And so for me, all those injuries made me then eventually stop playing football. And at the time I was playing a decent level of football. I was playing hurling as well in Ireland. And so there was times where I was training 5 hours a day. So it was just natural for me to train that volume. And when I stopped that, I was going through a bad patch in my life. I had, I'd gone to Australia. I broke up with the girlfriend that I was dating at the time, and we'd been together for 5.5 years. It was pretty serious, I guess. And then I moved to Boston, and I was playing Gaelic football over there, and then I got injured, and I got shipped back to Ireland. I went back to college. I got no financial support from the Irish government, so I was literally fucking down and out at 29 years of age, trying to go back to college to try and fucking, in my opinion, make something of myself. And so, this is something, I guess this is why your studio means so much to me, is because that filled a void that I didn't even know I was looking for. I was in a very lost space, and finding something that could give me that 5 hours of, give me the neural feedback that I was looking for, but also just a welcoming space, where I wasn't judged, and, I could go in and actually have fun. That was a beautiful thing for me, because a lot of fitness classes, when you go in, it's very hard to kind of talk to somebody if you're just smashing your body. But if I can go in on a Saturday morning, have a cup of coffee, and go through a nice movement prep, and watch a coach demonstrate some handstands, understand why my body can't do that, it changes your whole perception on what exercise is, right? And I even hate the word exercise, because I just call it movement, right? I just say to people, if we can create a movement that becomes as important as brushing your teeth, then you're more likely to do it. So for me, I'm trying to find your why. If I can find the currency that you want to buy into, then that's the key. If I have somebody who comes on a call with me and they're a golfer, and I can get them better at playing golf, but also being a better human being as well, then my job's done. And, again, I'll relate it back to what you do. I think it's great in terms of, I think you find the sweet spot of hard work, good coaching, fun, creating a community, creating this kind of tribe element where everybody gives each other a high five or a hug and really wants everybody else to do well, right? I think that's what I really get from the movement studio. That's always been my interaction with it. And I guess, what I'd kind of like to understand is just what's next for you, what's next for the movement studio, and have you got any big projects or goals on the horizon?
Yeah, so around this time last year, we had signed for a second premises, and the landlord went AWOL for a couple of months, and that ended up falling through. So we were really excited about that last year. And this year, we are about to sign for our second premises, which is massive. It's about 3 times.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate.
Yeah.
10-year journey, right? It's fucking epic.
It wouldn't be the space we would choose initially, because we're okay, it's 3 times the size of the space we have. We have what we believe is a model that works. So anyway, we're about to put pen to paper, hopefully this week. This has been ongoing since before Christmas, but it's a formality anyway. We have our second place. The great thing about that is now I've Helen, my wife, myself, we bought a house here last year in Kild, just outside Dublin. So it's 20-ish minutes from Terranure, and the new gym will be 12 minutes from where we live now. So we get to keep our small group coaching model, have the new place designed in a way where it's still a 1 to 8 model, give or take, and just more rooms within the space. It'll be 12 minutes from where we are, so we get to build another community in Naas, close to where I live. I get to keep coaching up in Terranure a couple of days a week as well, which I don't want to let go of. I love the people up there. And we get to see more jobs for people. Just given two of our coaches, full-time hours. And increasing roles and responsibilities for those coaches.
So you were just back to creating jobs for other people, and then you went on to...
Yeah, so just having a second place, developing a new community, meeting new people, basically doing what was done in Terranure over again, and seeing what that gives and what that needs and how it develops and what type of person will be the main kind of person to join that gym. But as a growing business, then to create roles for people, to back to what you were saying about I'll let Athena do this and maybe David will do that and I'll step away and maybe they're actually better at this than I am, and Richie's doing that now and I've stepped away from this. I'm still busier than I've ever been, but the roles are different. And I love that idea of doing yourself out of a job and letting somebody replace you. And the word that keeps popping up to me this year is undeniable. Just be undeniable. Like, it's such a powerful word. And Keith had said it to me last week, and I was saying to him, I was like, Jesus, like she's been undeniable. Like, I can't not give her more work. I can't not give her this thing to do. He's doing X, Y, Z. That's amazing. He's undeniable. Like, what he's doing is undeniable. So yeah, I just really excited about all of those things. To create career paths for people. Some of the coaches I've looked up to 10, 12 years ago, they were all like, there's no real career path in the fitness industry. I don't want it to be that way. So I'm going to make sure that my staff will have that. And he's gone on to grow an amazing business, and his existing gym as well. And I've seen those career paths being forged and formed, and people go on and do amazing things themselves. So I never thought I wanted to grow and scale a business until I grew up a lot more and realized that actually this is what you're supposed to do. But again, it's the honey coming from the fact that we're still looking after and nourishing people. So second premises, that's going to take a lot of our focus now. Once we put pen to paper, renovation, painting, gym fit out, and this and that, marketing, brand, interior. Like, this will be our going from 1 to 2. You're talking about going from 1 to 10, and it's a big step to take. When we got the second place last year that fell through, the first thing that came to mind was like, can't wait to see what it unveils in all of the people that are involved. And I think for me, that's just the process. It's a chance for me to say, to honor my honesty, my truth, my belief around people, not to forget about people and think, oh, we're going to be loaded. Like, it's not that. So the idea of it's just going to provide more full-time jobs, more roles, meet more people. Yeah, spread the love. Can't wait. So that's the big news. But in the meantime, we've spent a year refining, systemizing, improving everything we do in Terran Euro. Like, everything has got so much better. And that's been a really important, valuable year. And if we had got the place last year, we wouldn't be a year as ready as we are now. So everything worked out the way it's supposed to, I believe. So that's what's happening. Really excited.
Yeah, it's amazing how those things happen, isn't it? Like, just like I'm a big believer. Like, one of the best things that I took. So like a few years ago when COVID happened, I lost 90% of my business in the space of a week, right? And that was pretty fucking scary. And that, obviously impacted me gratefully. And then I had a few diehard clients who stuck with me. And that's the main reason, I guess I was able to survive. And in my opinion, still in Australia, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to stay here. But more importantly, like, what I've noticed is, like, when you stay true to your colors, like when you stay true to you, as like I always wanted people, whatever video you watched of me on social media, I wanted you to watch that, and then if you ever had an interaction with me, you would know it's the same person. And that's always something that I've stayed true to. And so, like, in relation to just, things, what goes around comes around sort of mentality, is like, I know I'm a good coach. I know I've been doing this for 22 years and I know I'm a good coach. So when somebody potentially isn't having it's not going the way they felt it would, I would always question, how everything's going. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is because I used to get very affected when I lost a client like a few years ago. Like, I was so invested in that individual that I would then blame myself and say, what did I do wrong that person didn't want to stay with me? And then it was only for Amy said to me, she's like, you know what, you have to appreciate that just sometimes it's not you. Like, it's, and so what I started to do then was, I'm a big believer of the law of attraction. Like, I know there's a lot of people who don't believe in that stuff, but like, hey, if you ever want to listen to it, listen to Jim Carrey and his story around laws of attraction. It's fucking beautiful. He was, I can't remember what age he was, but let's say he was 7 years of age. And he said to his father, like, I really want to, he said to, he was in a class and the priest, it was an Irish priest, was his teacher. And the Irish priest said to him, sure, look, whenever I want something, I pray to God and sure, look, don't I get it? And so he said, right, okay. So he went home and he prayed for a bike that night. And he said 2 weeks later, he came home from school and there was a bike in his sitting room. And he said to his dad, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, your friend entered you into a competition and you won it." And he said from that moment on, he always just believed in the laws of attraction. What he did when he first started acting is he wrote himself a check for $10 million and he put it in his wallet. And then within 12 months, he was getting paid $10 million per movie. And he gave that check to his dad and he basically said, like, this is for you. And for me, like the way I install that in my life is whenever I have a client who needs to go their separate ways or has, whatever happens, I give them a big pat on the back and I say, okay, cool. We have open doors here. If you're welcome back at any point. And what I know deep down in my head is when I let that person go, another person comes in. Always happens. And it only happens because I believe it's going to happen. When the times that I'm really down on that person leaving, that's when I'm really struggling to get another person in. And so what I believe is that you just have to appreciate, that there's people who, if we relate it back to the person who's scared to come into a fitness class because they don't think they're fit enough, there's people who do make the decision, but then, whatever, they'll make excuses and they won't get the results or they'll give up too easy and then they'll blame you. And so like one of the biggest things that we have on our system is we have like what we call our traffic light system, which is we're always monitoring when somebody is active. And if somebody hasn't been active in 3 to 5 days, we'll reach out and we'll ask them, hey, is everything okay? Like, obviously we have structure behind what we do, but we also say to them is, if life is in the way, like if you're in a really dark place or you're feeling really shitty, like let's get on a call. Like if you haven't done 2 sessions this week and you've promised to do 2 sessions this week, like you getting on a call is imperative. Like we're adults here. Let's have a conversation. It doesn't even have to be about fitness. Like we have a space here for you. Like I would rather you, like what's interesting, just a quick caveat is like, what's interesting is it's amazing how people who don't really know you will open like literally the floodgates to you in terms of like unraveling things because they know there's no judgment. So what I always say to people is like, again, you've been an in-person personal trainer. A lot of the times I ended up becoming a therapist because a lot of people were coming to you and there was more there than just the fitness side of things. And I think that's a beautiful space as well. If you can allow someone to understand that, hey, I'm here. And it doesn't just have to be from a training perspective. Like I have dark days, not the fucking unicorns and sunshine is not always outside this door. Like, and what I always rely on is knowing that I have a circle of friends that I can say, hey, I don't feel okay today. And they're going to know what to say or they're going to know what to do. Or like what Amy usually says was, do you want to be fixed or do you just want me to listen? And so in that space, I'm like, today I just want you to listen. Because sometimes, our partner's always going to try and pick the right words or think like, what they think is going to be the right words. And maybe in that instance, you're like, I just want to get it out. I want to vocalize it. And that's a beautiful thing as well. And obviously I'm going on a tangent here, but that tends to happen when I get into things that I'm passionate about. But I guess it's just to show that there's so much more to, what I offer, what you offer, and bringing it back to, I hold you a big testament to that for me, because I realized that actually there's so much more to just teaching a class and people entering and people leaving, right? Like, and that was, I don't think I'd ever experienced that prior to stepping foot into your gym, right? Like I was, what did I say? 2015, I think is when I entered into your space, and 2009 is when I started teaching. I think we met in about 2009 at the Bozu training. So, for a good 6 years, I was teaching group classes. And I had a few people. I still talk to some people, actually. Some people write to me on Instagram that I trained. And even one person came across me randomly who lives up in Brisbane and was like, oh my God, hilarious. Like, we've come a long way from training in the park. And I thought that was hilarious. And it was like, oh yeah, cool. So it just shows you that you've made that impact on people even, 15 years later. So, for me, I think it's, we'll kind of close on this, but I think it's really good that there's people like you still in this space, because there is a lot of people out there that obviously are blinded by the lights of that monetary value and actually just trying to get numbers in. But I think it's a big testament when we find places and online platforms. I mean, you can ask anybody who works with us online, they love it. And we do go above and beyond for people because we do realize that there's more to just the fitness side of things. If we can just actually get somebody feel supported and understand the struggles of life, as I'll leave it on this. We train people in the realms of reality. So we understand that life gets in the way, there's kids, there's variables. And if you've committed to doing 4 sessions a week and you can't continue to do that every week, that's also okay. And we just want to, we want to tell people this. It's just consistency over intensity, and spend your life being able to make decisions based off your interests and not your ability to carry out those movements. You got anything that you'd like to throw in before we head on our merry way?
Yeah, just to recap around that as well. I hate the idea that one person leaving, one coming in would feel transactional. Like, we've had people, we're in a privileged position where somebody leaves genuinely, mostly for a good reason, because their emails to initiate the process of, like, I've moved jobs, I've changed jobs, but I've always said the movement studio is a platform for people, whether they're here for 1 month, whether they're here for 10 years. It should offer value to people where maybe they'll stay for the rest of their life, maybe they'll move on. We just had a member I absolutely adore who's been here for like 5 years, and she moved on because she wanted something a bit more performative, probably high rocks, or stuff like that, and stuff we don't do in Turn Your. But I was like, amazing! I can't believe you've got to a stage now where that's what you want to do, and I'm delighted for her and stuff. There's always people out there, and then you'll meet somebody new and beautiful, and you'll be able to help them and stuff, which is great. But back to the last point you were making is, for me, it's being the change you want to see, and especially considering the way the world has been the last year, is taking care of your own corner of the planet. I think I feel helpless in the broad scheme of how the world has gone the last year, and it's really sad, but we can always be the change we want to see and hopefully take care of our own little corner of the planet. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we'll leave it on that. I mean, I can talk for days, but I think, again, I'll just say thank you, because it means a lot to me that you are obviously on this podcast, and especially being the first person on this podcast, because you've drastically improved my life, whether you think you have or not. You opened my world to a new space in the fitness industry, and you showed me that when you're passionate about something and you're honest about something, you can make a business out of it. And that's, I guess, what I took when I left Ireland and went to Australia. And I really held that passion around creating community and knowing people's names, and just like showing people that they actually mean a lot to you. And thank you for that. And that's something that I use even in my business now, regardless of how large it grows and how many members we get. I will always remember people by their first name.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And you should be very proud of yourself as well.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome.